Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to the After Maghrib podcast. Of course, we are now entering the days of Muharram, the days, of course, where we commemorate the demise, the martyrdom, the tragedy of the killing of Imam Hussain, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. And of course, it goes without saying that we firstly extend our condolences to none other than Imam al-Mahdi, ajallahu ta'ala, farajah sharif. And of course, all to you all as well at home. If you're here for the first time, welcome to After Maghrib. Hit that subscribe button. We do weekly conversations on Islam, on community, and how to uplift ourselves. And of course, entering the Muharram season, the next few podcasts will be focusing on everything to do with Karbala, before, during, and after, and ways in which we can apply what we learn in that epic to our own lives, in our day-to-day interactions. Today, inshallah, we're gonna start on that note. So we're going to have a fantastic conversation where we look at the values of Imam Hussain and the ways in which we can not only apply it to ourselves but also introduce it to people around us. So we have two very special guests, two amazing friends of mine, brothers of mine, no pun intended. But before I introduce these two brothers, my other brother, Sayyid Ali Radhawi. Assalamu alaikum, bro.
Habibi alaykum assalam wa rahmatullah.
How are you keeping?
Alhamdulillah, I'm well. I'm just taking in the reality that the month of
The
Muharram
season
is here.
is upon us.
So there's a lot of, I think, reflection for me to do during this month, as well as, in addition to the spiritual, inshallah, growth that happens during this month, on top of the azar that we do, the remembrance, the majalis that we attend. And I think personally, similar to last year and the previous years here on the podcast, I want to know what theme do we have for this year. And you mentioned just now in the intro, we're going to discuss Karbala before, during, and after. Last year was the Tawheed of Imam Hussain. So I think this is going to be a journey for everyone, inshallah, we benefit.
Inshallah. Of course, we know the hadith of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, where he says, and I translate, the killing of Hussein lights a fire that never subsides in the lovers of him. And so, inshallah, on that note, we can enter the season with that love. We can try and keep that fire burning, and inshallah try our best to do justice.
The eternal flame.
Ahsant, bro. And be able to call ourselves Hussaini with pride and also with ma'rifah as to what that means. Because there's one thing going out and saying we're Hussaini, but embodying that and personifying that is a whole different thing. So hopefully we're going to be able to do that today. I am introducing two amazing guests. One of them, for those at home, or for those listening, looks and sounds like me. Okay? And one of them looks and sounds like Sayyid Ali. I'm joking. So to my left, my own blood brother, my big brother, Ali. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu Ahmed, how are you?
I'm good,
That is good. I've never had an introduction like that. I've never had someone say this guy looks like me and talks like me. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for coming, bro.
Salam Sayyid, how are you?
Habibi alaykum salam.
And to Ali's left,
you do sound the same now. I'm thinking of
really.
Should we swap seats?
Gosh. And to Ali's left, Montazir. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thank you for coming,
Habibi,
bro.
being here.
And for those who don't know, these two brothers, they are members, key members of the Hussain Foundation. And all of us at home, I'm sure, know whoshussain.org. And if you don't, then please pause the podcast right now and go to whoshussain.org, because you will not understand the context of this conversation without looking at
whoshussain.org/donate.
Yes, yeah, inshallah.
Correct,
And listen.
And don't forget, aftermaghrib.com/partner.
Yeah. But listen, we're entering, say, the season of Azar, the season of mourning. These next 10, 11, 12 nights are going to be nights of grief for us. No tragedy like Imam Hussein's tragedy. Now, we say every year that this is the greatest tragedy that has ever happened on the face of the earth. Not because of how many people died, not because of when it happened, but rather who was killed and the way in which he and his family and companions were martyred on the plains of Karbala, what took place before, the betrayal that took place before, during, and even after the Battle of Karbala. The 50 years since the death of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, leading up to the Battle of Karbala, and what took place on those plains, kind of sets a tone, I think, for us when we enter this month, to realize that the tragedy goes beyond the 10th of Muharram. What do you reckon?
It does, it definitely does. And even I think, not just beyond the 10th of Muharram, even like during the 10th of Muharram, I think we need to have reminders. Like, for me, I want to understand, okay, why was Imam al-Hussain present in Karbala? Why did it happen on the 10th of Muharram? What led to this, huge massacre that I think until today, there's no other massacre you can compare that people until today, hundreds and hundreds of millions, will still cry.
Yeah.
You mentioned the name of Abu Abdullah. It's impossible not to shed tears. You know, inshallah, these tears act as intercession for us on the day of judgment. So you're right, there is more. There is more to take from this. I'm ready.
What I think is what a key question we get asked as Shia and as lovers of Imam Hussain is, why do you guys do what you do? Okay, so we go to work, of course, we continue our lives during these 10 nights. We wear black. We go out for majalis at night. We go to majalis in people's homes. We post on social media. And a lot of the time we get asked by those who don't understand why we do what we do, why we're doing this. So, Muntazir, to maybe kick off, what does this season mean to you? I know it means a lot to you personally. What's your thought process when trying to summarize why this is a cause which you care about so much?
Yeah, so I mean, I think, look, in the day, we're all humans, and that means that we all love a hero. We all need a guide in life. We all want to see and connect with something that has happened, which can motivate and inspire us to become better people, to get the best out of ourselves. And we know there's that saying that Imam Hussain, that ship is the fastest and widest.
Percent.
And there's a reason. There must be more wisdom than I can put my finger on, but it's there because it is the best way to be able to get us to the end goal. And the end goal, it's Tawheed. It's getting closer to God. It's not just about crying for Imam Hussain. And of course, I know we all go into this month and we think about what happened to Imam Hussain. But I think we all understand as well that Imam Hussain didn't and doesn't want us to just cry about what happened. He has no qualms about what happened to him. He is happy, as it says at the end of Surah Al-Fajr, which is known as Surah Al-Hussain, that he is pleased with God and God is pleased with him. So it's not about going into this season and just thinking about just what's happened and what has happened. It's about looking at how this is a springboard for something even greater. Imam Hussain only did this for God. He didn't do it for any other reason, for any other purpose. It was for the purest of intentions. So for me, it's always about going into this season and thinking, what's happening in my life at the moment? What do I need to learn from Imam Hussain? And it's the day of Ashura is just a university of lessons. Every single year, it's amazing how millions, they go to majalis, you learn something new. It'll be somehow newly applicable to whatever struggle is going on with you at that point in life, which in itself is just miraculous. But I think every time it's got to be, how is this going to springboard me to getting closer to God and refining my own tawheed? I don't know, Ali, what do you think?
I mean, if you think about it, Karbala shouldn't make no sense because tragedies happen every day. We just need to look on BBC News, CNN right now. I guarantee top 3 headlines, there'll be someone will have died, someone will have starved, someone will have been bombed. We all think about the same place right now, right?
Yeah.
We've all seen videos in the last few months of girls walking through flames, people carrying bags of their children, dead parts of their children in carrier bags. Tragedies have happened in history, throughout history, and unfortunately will continue to happen as long as the human race walks this earth, really, until the end. So what makes Karbala different? There's got to be something that makes it different. There is something that makes it different. There is a higher realm, a higher reality of Karbala that exists on not a merely material sense. It's a meta level of reality of Karbala that talks to our souls, in which any single person who's experiencing any kind of challenge, they're feeling overwhelmed, they're feeling encumbered by something, can see something in Karbala. I remember what I saw in Karbala when I was 11 years old, and when I heard the story of Bibi Sakina, I cried because Ahmed and me have a young sister who at the time was a very young girl, and I thought of her.
Relatability.
And now I'm a father, and I think of my children, and that's at a very human level. But then I think to myself, do you know what? What is it about this that makes it so much more powerful than that? Let's say in a year, 365 days, we spent more than 10% of our year mourning. Every year. It's extraordinary. It doesn't make any sense, but it does make sense. And because it's now part of our DNA, Imam Hussain is our reminder that whatever we're going through, there's we can achieve more, we can do it, we can overcome,
Yeah.
we can succeed, we can fight towards Allah, we can strive towards Allah, and we can sacrifice, because ultimately the man we're looking at was able to do it. I have spent my life, I'm not the greatest student of history or politics or the international international relations. I've spent my life as an amateur student of the world trying to make sense of liberal democracy, of international human rights, of the judicial systems.
Yeah.
They're so flawed. Winston Churchill himself said, to paraphrase him, democracy is rubbish, it's the best we've got. It's absolutely terrible. There are people out there in the world for whom we have arrest warrants for committing mass murder, and we can't enforce them because certain governments don't want to do it.
Yeah.
There's got to be a better order out there, and the Hussaini way is the pinnacle of what humanity can achieve, as far as I'm concerned. So in terms of the relevance of Imam Hussain, it's the higher calling for every single member of humanity that we keep going back to, I
So
think.
very, very beautifully said. And you mentioned you had a younger sister at the time when you were relating to the story of Bibi Sakina, and thank you for mentioning that, because it brought me memories when I first took my daughter to Majalis.
Yeah.
I remember hearing from the pulpit the speaker on the minbar, and he was narrating the tragedy, and I was like, I can just imagine for a moment. Imagine this was Haneen, for example.
Yeah.
And that really shredded my heart. It ripped it into pieces. And I imagined, okay, what about the heart of Hussein? What about the heart of Zainab? What did they go through? And it's a reflection as well, like so many things we can learn, not just social justice. In addition to that is that no matter what we go through, no matter what tragedies we face, there is a bigger cause and there is a bigger tragedy. And that's about Abdullah al-Hussein, someone who changed the course of history, right? Another thing I want to add, like you mentioned, you can go to the workplace, people say, why do you wear black and everything? Maybe I can answer it from a Hussaini Shia perspective. And I want to learn more from you guys on how to answer people in the workplace, how to answer people in educational settings. For me, it's like if someone asks me, okay, why are you wearing black? Or why are you crying? Why do you go to Majalis? And I'll be like, look, for me, I know that building a connection with the Imam is something great in the eyes of Allah. Why? I can go back and say, Rasulullah said, أحب الله من أحب حسينا حسين مني وأنا من Hussein. So on like a basic level, my understanding is, if I want God to love me, if I want the mercy of Allah, if I want Allah to have my back, Allah Azza wa Jalla becomes my backbone, I need to love the Ahlul Bayt.
Yeah.
But that's like on a conversation I can have with a fellow Muslim,
With a
fellow
brother in
Shi'i.
faith,
And
yeah.
I know it's difficult because sometimes I get asked and I find it very hard to explain to someone who doesn't know what sacrifice is,
Yeah.
to someone who doesn't know what khidmah is, or to someone who
Right.
doesn't know why would you cry continuously 1,400 years later. How would you explain it to someone, let's say in the West, that you meet in the workplace, randomly now he sees you, okay, now you're wearing black. Randomly now he sees you, your face is no longer joyous, it's more in grief. He's going to ask, is everything okay? Is everything all right at home? So but they don't know the real story.
And can I add to that
Go
as
on.
well?
Yeah.
Because this is the reason why, guys, for those who are listening at home, why we wanted to have this segment of this conversation on this day entering the season is because you're gonna experience this, and we all experience it to a degree. So understanding, is there a best way of introducing Imam Hussein's message to people, and how do you do that? So and we
this
are
is
going
to a Western audience, for example.
to a non-Shia, but let's forget the other Muslims for now, because I think that's a whole different dynamic. Let's talk about non-Muslims and how we approach it now, because there's things that come into my mind, and we're gonna do role plays. Okay, so I'm gonna do an elevator pitch with you guys, and I think that's maybe a nice place to start. And I'm gonna put you on the spot, Munni. I'm gonna start with you.
Thanks.
Okay, so sorry, bro, but
Thank you for starting with him.
Yeah,
no,
Hussein.
but listen. You are in an elevator, okay? You walk in, you're wearing black dishdasha, you got your scarf on and everything. Someone says to you, I like your outfit. Why are you wearing that? What do you say?
You got your stopwatch ready? Empire State Building.
I think it's always got to start with something from the heart, because if it's something that's scripted, fake, it just doesn't come off as authentic, and they're just thinking, this guy's got a well-prepared answer.
Yeah.
Right.
It's got to start with, listen, something along the lines of, my teacher, my guide, the biggest inspiration in my life, the one that helps me through tough times, passed away on this day. And it's a day where I feel heartbroken every single year. And that's why we dress like this, because I'm sure if it was your family member or someone that meant as much as a man called Hussein ibn Ali does to me, you would do the same. You would be broken and you would be dressing in dark colors or whatever signifies grief to you. And it's about making sure that they understand what he means to you, making sure that you've said the name. I think, you know, I'm really imagining this elevator, by the way, with, you know, like a couple of like non-Muslim people in there, and I'm thinking, you start saying Imam Hussain alayhi salam, they have not got a clue what you've just said. But if you say Hussein ibn Ali, they probably say, oh, that sounds like a person's name. Say Hussein by itself, on a level, people have said, you're talking about Saddam Hussein, astaghfirullah, but you have to clarify. It's small things like this that just helps that person understand a little bit more. And then maybe saying to them something along the lines of, who do you turn to when times are hard for you? And they might say,
that's nice.
I remember my mum, or I remember my school teacher, or I remember person X. And suddenly you two both have got something that you can bond with and say, hey, okay, you went through this. And they'll probably say, listen, everyone's got a mum, everyone's had a school teacher, but everyone who's not Muslim has not got or may not have had a Hussein. And that's the moment where you've got to be able to say to them, listen, let me tell you about this man. And I'm telling you, when you know, I'm sure we all have done this. We've spoken to people.
Comes from the heart.
And it just
flows out.
And you see their demeanor change as well. You know, even the most kind of hard person, or maybe the most Islamophobic, but it changes, and they may not want to kind of like let that be known, but you can see it changes. So if it comes from the heart, it will reach the heart, inshallah, and at least that way you've let them know about this person. The rest of it, you know, we always say, who is saying, the rest of it that's God's job. Our job is not here to try and get people to change faith and things like that. That's God's job. But ours is most definitely, as an organization, is most certainly to let the 7 billion odd non-Muslims out there know about this man.
So I guess that's also why whoishussain.org has such an important role to play, because when you have that initial conversation, it's a long history to talk about the story of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. And obviously the website plays a big role in further research and redirecting people to a place where they can find more and research more. And you've got stuff there. You've got historical stuff for people who are interested. Obviously you go into the social work. Obviously, who's the same, for those who don't know, have over 50 odd teams around the world, from Hong Kong to Medellin, Colombia, and everywhere else.
Ahmed knows his
I know my stuff.
Having been part of the team before,
who's the saying, and Said Ali knows this, my life would look completely different, and Ali knows that, and Money knows that, but it's had a profound impact on me, and I truly think that comes down to whatever you give to the Imam, Allah rewards you.
You make a good point there, which is about, so Muntazir gave a very like personal, humanizing answer, which is associating Imam Hussain as like a human being, right? Like a real human who's in his life. The alternative, or I don't say the alternative, or the other maybe angle, or the perspective, is to talk about the values. So I wouldn't do this in an elevator, but just like some context for everyone in the world. I talk about historical context. I have been talking about a lot recently. I've been thinking about this. So just in the last few weeks, the European Space Agency and NASA sent an orbiter, like a space shuttle, close to the sun to get the best pictures we've ever got of the sun, right? We're developing microchips, processing data. There's theories in like computer science that we process data. Every 10 years, we double the speed of our learning, all this kind of stuff. All that human progress is happening at extraordinary speeds. 1 in 4 people go to bed hungry every night. 1 in 4 people don't have access to clean water, and 1 in 11 people go to bed hungry every night. So despite our extraordinary, mind-blowing, imperceivable advances as a civilization, right? We're getting further and faster every single day, whether it's AI or digital change or technology, whatever it is. The history of humanity is that we're very, very good at subjugating or allowing the subjugation or the eradication of the basic individual rights, liberties, and amenities of the mass and the poorest of us.
Yeah,
that's not a left field liberal. That's just a factual thing.
Truth. Yeah.
We are every single one of us who has a phone.
Moral deficit.
These things are who minds these things. I mean, it's part of our fundamental footprint. is that we subjugate others for our own benefit and our own creed. And the only worldview I found, the only one, not monarchist, not conservative, not liberal, not this, not that, nothing, not nationalist, nothing. The only worldview that I found that's beyond reproach, to which we should hearken, the only one that I've seen not a single blemish in, which someone has been able to live a life of perfection with, is this one. Because this is the guy who died thirsty, who gave water to the people who made him thirsty.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not a book smart level of humanity. This is like, literally, I will give you access to a river when I know you're going to make me die of thirst, and you're going to make my kids die of thirst, and you're going to obliterate everyone I love. Like, there's got to be something much greater. You know, you look at the other greats that people talk about, and I'm not going to name them all, but we know the kind of people, the great heroes, the lionized people of social justice, they all have a blemish of some sort. Family life, indiscretion, something. This man Hussein and the people around him have got something that sets them apart. And if that worldview, if we can even take a scintilla of it and take it into our world, if we had a lot more Hussainis in this world, 1 in 4, 1 in 11 will not be thirsty and hungry. That's my perspective. Because that man didn't let other people go thirsty. Even when they were his enemies, he didn't let them go thirsty. And so I don't think, I don't think democracy, I don't think the neoliberal order, these are not answers to these problems.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Salam Hussein.
Yeah,
So that's not an elevator pitch. That's
No, you mentioned a very nice point. If there was more Hussainis, there would be less people, for example, dying thirsty, going to sleep hungry. That means the world is missing Hussaini values. And this is very nice. I think what an organization like yours does, who is Hussein, is like you try to let the world know, as you said, we're not trying to convert you. We're not trying to change you. But we're making you aware of who this great man is, right? And I think that's something so special.
It's relevant today. It's not just a historical character.
You know, I'll be honest, I was...
Because you bring Hussein alive.
Is Hussein, not was Hussein.
Yeah, I've been at a few Gaza protests, and I told Said this, I was helping some friends out on a stall they had to talk to people about Imam al-Mahdi. I think that's very difficult. Because you're talking about a futuristic figure, a figure from the future. Well, obviously he's in the present, but you know what I mean. Someone who will return.
To non-Muslims, basically.
To non-Muslims. And you're talking about someone who shared Abrahamic, all Abrahamic faiths have different things of him. And it's difficult because you're talking about something that might happen. But the value-based proposition of, the moral deficit in society, what, you talk about in the context of Gaza or any other genocide or any other atrocity, there is a lack of humanity in all regards. And people then just tend to agree with you. They agree with you because they know that there's a lack of goodness. And that thing of Imam Hussain salamullah alayhi being the epitomization and the personification of all things good.
Yes.
That's
goodly or godly, whatever we want to say.
Yeah, of course.
Do you think our community does enough at the moment to let people know about him? I always think to myself, I've been on a real rant at the moment with the team, and I'm like, we're so selfish as a madhab. We're just incredibly selfish. I don't think any of us can say, what have we done? Okay, he's in your lineage, you're in his lineage, but what have we done to deserve this greatest gift? Yeah. Right? We'd all say that he is probably one of the top gifts that we've been blessed with from God. What did we do to deserve it? Right? Nothing. But the best gifts in life are the ones that you share with others.
Yeah.
But I don't think we do. I think we go 10 days majalis. We don't let people know. People see us turning up in droves to centres in black. Wouldn't they be wondering, what are these lot doing every year? Do we do anything? When we have majalis at home and we've got cars parked all over, awfully probably, in driveways, do we explain to our neighbours what's going on? And
do people then say, have we got to the point as a community, 2% of the world's population are Shia? Do people say, these guys have Hussein and that's what makes them better? They should be saying that though, shouldn't they?
Exactly. You know what?
Hussein makes them the best of us.
There's a lot of this. Correct. Because Imam Radhawi says, introduce our values to people and we'll do the rest. Correct. Imam Sadiq says, be an adornment for us and do not represent the Sunnah in an ugly fashion.
Incorrect.
I'm
Yeah.
obviously paraphrasing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ahadith which discuss this, and of course in our ziyarat, how many of our ziyarat we hear about the propagation of Imam Hussein's message. And then of course when you get into the aqaidi discussion, that's a whole different thing, but from a purely like social, historical, humanitarian level, it makes sense, and I think we can all agree that. I want to ask you a few questions, okay, and specifically in terms of rebuttals, right? So people will give rebuttals, so I'm going to throw 3 or 4 at you, and I want you to come up with a response, and of course it doesn't have to be the right response, but it's your response, okay, as a caveat. Firstly, you mentioned Hussein ibn Ali and not Imam Hussain alayhi salam. I know people around the world react differently to that.
Sure.
When you talk about the Holy Prophet Muhammad, to a non-Muslim,
Yeah.
do you say Prophet Muhammad or do you say Muhammad ibn Abdullah, for example? And the reason why I say that is because you could obviously apply the same principle. My personal answer would be that the term prophet is obviously an anglicized word, and secondly, he's known in the Western world as Prophet Muhammad. But what's your response, especially to people in our own community, as to why you think that's the best way to introduce Imam Hussein's name?
Yeah, so first of all, regarding Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, first of all, there is obviously an ayah in the Quran where it talks about sending it. That's the, if you want to call it, the sunnah of God to send praise on him. So there is already a grand kind of elevation for him. There is obviously no one like him that's lived on this earth. And when it comes to Imam Hussein, it's not really about dropping the titleage, because it's not something that is important. It's first of all something that people would not understand. Prophet is also an English word.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't say Rasulullah,
Of course.
right? You'd say Prophet Muhammad. You've already translated it. Imam, how would you translate?
Yeah.
The leader Hussein, a bit of a weird way to say it, first of all.
Yeah.
The other thing is also we've made sure that we've, ticked boxes. We've made sure that we've sat with scholars and asked them, listen, when we're doing it for this purpose of, let's be honest, it's soft da'wah, soft tabligh.
Yeah.
For that purpose, unanimously the scholars have told us it's not a problem. You don't have to refer to him as Imam. You don't have to say alayhi salam after his name. Because if you're trying to get this over to a non-Islamic, Western, English-speaking...
it has to be digestible.
So it's got to be something that makes sense to them.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, there's a huge difference between... Not a huge difference. First of all, number one, I want to emphasize what Montazir said. Huge respect we try to pay towards what the learned people in our community say. Number one. And be hugely respectful towards the figures we're talking about. We don't treat this figure lightly, or this group of people lightly. Always leading with respect. But context is king. Well, the way you talk to someone in London is different to the way you talk to someone in Karachi. And, if someone is from a society that's very Islamic or has...
Of course, yeah.
They will understand if you're going to say Imam... Many of these
Or
people...
even if you're speaking
many
to
people
a-
don't think
a
of him...
Sunni.
Yeah, they may call him Imam
And just
Hussain
on that
or
point,
Abdullah.
actually, so in the subcontinent, in India and Pakistan, we encourage our teams call him as Imam Hussain, because that's how he is.
it's
Otherwise
common
it's
use.
disingenuous.
Obviously,
Well,
even
yeah.
in the UK, if you're speaking to a Sunni,
Oh, yeah, you'd
you'll
call him
say
Imam
Imam
Hussain,
Hussain.
of course, absolutely.
So
All right.
there's a big difference between Prophet and Imam, first of all, and but we're very and once people got over this shock, because there's a huge shock factor at the beginning, right?
yeah,
Let's be honest.
I remember. Yeah.
But once people, I don't think we hear this very much anymore, do we?
No.
Very rarely now.
Yeah.
Because people have come to terms with there's a respect, and also to respect the man is to talk about him in a way that people understand, which is,
course,
like you
yeah.
said, the genesis of the organization is introducing us. You can't introduce someone who, an aeronautics engineer starts talking about something very technical to someone who's a layperson. They're not going to understand. If he talks about them simply, then it's due respect to his...
Can I be honest about something? Many, many years ago, when I first came across the organization, who was Hussein, I did find it disrespectful. Number one, I think because I'm Shia. And we've always been used to hearing Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam.
Of course.
So when I used to see that on, for example, marketing material and posters and things like that, I'm like, okay, where's the Imam? You're a Shia organization. Where's the alayhi salam? And I think it took years, for me to process
Bro, but-
that this is tabligh, not to us.
Bro, it's not a
This is,
Shia organization. I would counter that, bro. It's an organization. Honestly, I know I'm going to get hate for this.
We've trained Ahmed well.
Huh? Yeah. I don't
I
think
was
it
thinking
is.
the same thing.
Genuinely speaking, it's not
Wait,
even
wait,
train,
wait.
bro. It's
Now you're
mentality.
confusing me.
No, listen to this, bro. The organization founded, started, run, exists Shia.
Okay.
Shia belief system, Shia theology, Shia everything. Al-Qaeda Shia. Imam Hussain, the way you talk about him is the way a Shia would speak about him, not the way anyone else would speak about him. However, the whole point of the organization is to make Imam Hussein's message global. When Imam al-Mahdi returns, do I need to say it?
Huh?
Three out of
There you go.
there you go.
Yeah.
3 out of the 5 statements that he says
Relate
between the ruqd and the maqam are about Imam Hussain. My grandfather was the one who died at Shan. All of that stuff is,
You know, when you're doing messaging in any organization, in any context, it's by who and for who. By Shia, by lovers of Abu
everyone.
Abdullah, for universal. Sorry, in the organization, people laugh. I talk about John and Lucy. John and Lucy are the people who listen to this. If John and Lucy don't know what we're talking about because we're not talking about the way they understand,
Yeah.
don't bother talking. You've got to talk about the way people understand. And that's part of our even if you look at Rasulullah and the way he talked at the beginning of his mission,
Adaptation.
SubhanAllah, very different to the way he talked to the end. There's a journey that people go on.
and
eventually when people
the
get to the point where
adaptation to cultural
Absolutely.
differences as
By the
well,
way,
disparities between
But
people.
without compromising
His
on
core
key
values.
tenets,
Ahsant.
and
Yeah, of course.
not going beyond the lines of fiqh. That's
Ahsant.
something that we
Yes.
don't ever compromise on. But
Yeah.
the scholars that we speak to also understand that yes, there are certain areas where it's not a hard and fast rule. I appreciate the fact that you're being honest and you're just saying that, look, it was a bit difficult as a Shi'i at the beginning to really kind of like get with this. But that's the
Yeah.
bit where I come back to, look, as long as we're not transgressing fiqh, let's not be selfish. Don't keep him as Imam al-Hussein to John and Lucy, because they're not going to understand it. And why are we going to deprive them of this gift?
And people are smart. You know, like when I have the opportunity to go to our events, and part of our events is, you know, if you're feeding people on the street of London, you've got a stall, right? People walk past and they'll talk to you, what's this? And people understand. You know, Hussein is not a normal name for them. They understand it's... and they often will ask, is he a religious figure? That's the question you get asked a lot. Or was he a leader or something like that? Straight away. He was the grandson of the Prophet Muhammad. Is usually the first sentence I say.
Okay.
So there's no
Yeah.
there was an issue like, do we tiptoe around it? No, own up to it.
Yeah,
It's
of
from
course.
that lineage that these divine, godly morals emerge. But that doesn't mean it's limited to people who pray in this direction, who are this color, who have these names. No, this is a universal figure. Rahmatul lil Alameen is not rahmah for Shia, it's rahmah for everyone.
Mankind.
And this is the grandson of that man. And in the same way, he is a blessing upon all of creation. And that's
So
why
let me ask you a question,
Ya Allah.
if you don't mind.
Okay.
Do you think, because obviously we obviously try our level and humble best to try and talk about the story of Imam Hussain, the lessons from Imam Hussain. Obviously, our target audience is Muslim, specifically Shia.
Yeah.
So it's a different mission. Our goal, one of our many goals, is to unite the Shia across the world, regardless of ideological backgrounds and whatnot, demographics. Our goal is to unite people under the banner of Imama and banner of Tawheed, and obviously the Quran as well. Now, when we talk about Imam Hussain, we do it very differently, right? But when we talk about Imam Hussain to the wider audience,
Yeah.
do you think there's a place for comparison with other social justice movements? So, for example, Black Lives Matter, or for example, Palestine and what's happening there, or many others which I'm not even going to mention, some of which may be morally compromising or fiqhi, like in terms of
Okay.
jurisprudentially compromising. For example, someone may turn around and say, and we've seen a growing trend saying, why do you not talk about social justice issues like the LGBTQ movement, right? Or, for example, with Black Lives Matter, there's elements of controversy surrounding the movement. So do you think it's right or wrong to include discussions on other social justice movements when talking about Imam Hussain, or is it exclusive from that?
I don't think if I can answer it as is it right or wrong. I think as a Shia Muslim, for me, it's if I want to, for example, compare social justice figures, or if I want to compare certain things that we see happening around the world, let's relate to today, for example, something we can all relate to, what's happening in Gaza, for example. There's certain elements where I can say, okay, for example, there's like a Hussaini vibe, a Hussaini inspiration. Why not? By all means, and I encourage that. But
Yeah.
I think the moment, like you mentioned, the examples of LGBTQ and things like this, these are things Imam Hussain was not going to stand for.
Of course.
These are things that Rasulullah is not going to encourage us to go support and back for. So I think that we have to find the balance. Okay, if I want to stand for something and support something and use Imam Hussein's name to compare social injustices around the world, I think you have to think twice. But I would say something, if I can add to this question, is that I've always wondered, like, why does who is Hussein use, for example, Gandhi a lot? Why does the name Martin Luther King come out very, very often? And I have conversations with friends, and I share this with you now, and they say this is wrong. They say we can never compare Imam Hussein to these sort of figures.
Sure.
And I say,
compare.
yeah, and I say no problem, but no one's comparing, right? There is no comparison saying they are the Hussein.
Right.
They are, for example,
Malcolm X, Greta, whoever else.
There was this debate I was having, literally, Ahmed, weeks ago. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. It was, so this was the discussion that people are saying organizations like Who is Hussein, not just yours exclusively, because there are others that are in this field, right? They feel, in a way, lots of members in the Shia community, they feel such organizations are trying to replace majalis, are trying to replace Aza, are trying to replace XYZ. Okay. My counter to that was, this is not a replacement, this is in addition.
Correct.
Yeah.
They're not telling you, no, don't go beat your chest for Abu Abdullah. They're not telling you, no, come, let's go on a march, let's go make a stall in, I don't know, central London, and don't go to Majlis. They're not saying that. They're not even reaching out to you. This is something they do in addition to how...
It just goes back to this idea of don't be selfish with Imam Hussein. Why do we have to keep him in those four walls of the Hussainiyat or the Masajid?
Yeah.
Why do we keep him only there? And why for only us? And why for only our majalis, which we've had for decades? You know, alhamdulillah, shukr that we've had majalis. You have 10 nights. Is it not possible that in addition to those 10 nights, or outside of those 10 nights, can't you share him with other people who maybe through you God can gift Imam Hussein to these people? Like I said to you before, we didn't do anything to deserve him, right? So why can't we share him? I think at the end of the day, this idea of why do we use other, again, these people are not going to understand. If you say to them, Imam Hussein is the most amazing thing, Imam Hussein is your savior, you're going to sound like an evangelist, you know? They're not going to understand.
Shall I tell you what the argument was, just so that I think you can understand? Maybe you can actually give a response to these individuals. Is that they say, when organizations such as Hussein, when they speak about Abu Abdullah, when they talk about Karbala, when they talk about the tragedy of Ashura, they only select, social injustice, fighting tyranny, fighting evil and corruption, right?
Sure. As opposed to
the real message why Abu Abdullah embarked on the journey towards Kufa and Karbala happened, and Ashura happened, where Imam Hussain, he came out to revive the Ummah, to restore the teachings of his grandfather Rasulullah. Why is this not mentioned in your propagation?
So let's go through it. There's loads of very, very good points you've made. Number one,
because there's a primary cause and a secondary.
Let's go back to the question about replacing majalis. The inception of Hussein, in large part, our love for Imam Hussein comes from majalis. And by the way, we are not attending majalis, by the way, yeah? Number one. Number two, there are many forms of media, right? You can practice on different levels. One can read a book, one can have a conversation with a friend, one can attend an event. Hussein is about, in many parts, about restoring dignity for the downtrodden. That's why we have a domestic violence refuge in Dallas, Texas? Yep. Why on the streets of London and Birmingham, basically 5 days a week, we're doing a soup kitchen or food drive. It's why if you go to a school in Chicago and you can't afford school supplies for your kid, you're going to get given a backpack with Hussein. It's why in Mumbai, you're going to get food for a long period of time. It's why if you're an orphan in Karachi, you get taken to a mall of happiness where you can take anything you want without having to pay, because an orphan should have the joy of being treated to a shopping experience. It makes me very emotional thinking of that. These are and I said down dignity for downtrodden. Dignity, where does that word come from? Karama comes from Imam Hussain. That's the word that he uses again and again and again, and inextricably linked. You cannot talk about Imam Hussain without talking about dignity. Whatever the poor English translation of karama is, let's call it dignity or honor or basic. We'd probably say, to use a phrase like basic individual respect and dignity, is what Hussein is about. Hussein, you can't follow this man and allow your neighbor, whatever the definition of neighbor is, to be hungry, scared, anxious, nervous, worried, concerned about their well-being or their children's well-being or their parents' well-being is. You can't be Hussaini without doing that. You can't just go to Majalis and, you know, the whole thing about Rasulullah, 40 neighbors, you know, without having concern for your neighbors, you can't be a mu'min. This is very Hussaini in its orientation.
Yeah.
We cannot be Hussaini without ensuring the well-being of our society. The betterment of our society is at the kernel and the heart of everything to do with Imam Hussain. You take that away from Imam Hussain, what is it we're going to the Majalis for? Imam Hussain died for the betterment of the Ummah. As you said, that is at the heart of what Hussain tries our best to do. And it's not about superficial work either. It's about changing people's lives to the better, so that if in the welfare state or in the social dynamic, the horizon you're looking at, if there's a gap, who's the same will try and fill it. That's what we're all about.
Can I add to what you're saying, Ali? Just and what you're saying.
Yeah.
So, because you talked about something interesting, you talked about primary and secondary calls of the Holy Imam, alayhi salam, Islafi, Deen Jaddi. Yeah, the reformation of the deen of my grandfather, which I understand, Tawheed being a primary mission, and of course the secondary missions, you know, there could be many. Now, I think the way any propagation organization, who's saying or others, should approach it, and I think they do, to be honest, is scientifically. So, for example, and what Muni said about not being selfish, bro, how many friends, we spoke about one of our friends before we started recording, who's not Muslim, who became Muslim, became Shia because of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, and now he attends majalis with us, right? Why deprive others when they could have the chance of wilaya and, like, you know what I mean, for forever, for their lineage to come, bro? That's the and by the way, let me just say, 3 out of 4 of us wouldn't be Shia had it not been for Imam Hussain alayhi salam, because of our ancestors who became Shia because of Imam Hussain. So, and mashallah, look at the hundreds of thousands, and not even that, millions of people around the world who are that. The 300 million Shias existed because of, at the time, you know, when the Imam himself only had 72. Bro, look where we are now as an ummah. That's what I'm trying to say. So I think they approach it scientifically. So they say, obviously, the end goal, after all the research, the historical understanding, is the enlightenment, understanding Tawheed, ma'rifah of the Imam on an aqaidi level. I think that's the end goal. And I know there's this newsletter process, 8 weeks, right? 8 months of newsletter. I don't know if that's still happens.
You're talking about when people sign up for information about...
They sign up for an information pack. Eventually, we have someone's really interested.
Yep.
They get taken on a reversion process, right? Without me saying this.
I know I have to be careful. It's literally who is Hussain? Like,
who is Hussain? They get taken on a process where they can ultimately become.
No. It's like, we're not on a mission. By the way, let's be very clear.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah, if whatever people find, you said.
I get what you're saying.
You said the hadith, which is introduce us and we'll take care of it. To paraphrase.
Yes. Yeah.
And we are just trying to introduce, and then add meat on the bone. Which is to say, and not just make it an ephemeral, like, bumper sticker. You know, those stickers people put on their laptops, like, be like Hussein. It's about, like, literally, if I have a moral dilemma in my life, what would Hussein do? What would Imam Hussain do?
As well as that, it's just like I said, scientifically, statistically speaking, the more people you show a website, who is Hussein.org, the domain is a question, bro. Like, you show that domain to 10,000 people, 1%, 5, 10%, whatever it is.
Trickle down ideology.
We'll be curious, like, what is that?
I think the other thing to also remember or realize is, think of it this way: if we are able to show X million of people about Imam Hussain, when the Hujjah, when he does return and he introduces himself, and if you have got people who already know who Imam Hussain is, and he says, I am the grandson of, first of all, they've already associated the name Hussein with goodness and are more likely to be soft towards the Imam's message. But not only that, but if we're trying to, and this is kind of like our motto, which is creating compassionate communities inspired by Hussein ibn Ali. If we can soften hearts, if we can get people to become better versions of themselves, when the Imam comes back, inshallah, we have made the job just that little bit easier, whereby hearts are more soft and they can understand his message, which is ultimately the same thing, which is the deen and the risala of Muhammad.
Can I ask you guys a question? Do you think our global society is in moral decay?
Of course.
100%.
Do you think it's been in moral decay? It's a new phenomenon? It's been in moral decay for a long time.
Bro, this is the start of mankind.
Moral decay,
Qabil. Allah punished societies because of moral decay.
What is the, what's the antidote for that?
Islamic values, Islamic principles.
Higher values,
Yeah.
What in the world today gives anyone higher values. Because right now, as far as I'm concerned, there's good. The few things there are is capitalism that happens to be good capitalism, virtuous capitalism. Accidentally, people do moral things because CSR is good to do.
Yeah.
What else? Maybe some forms of religion.
But the thing is,
What
there's
else?
good, and then there's real good.
Right.
Do you see what I mean?
Deep,
So there's
like, true
superficial
virtue,
levels of goodness.
right? Benevolence.
Yeah, benevolence, and then there's levels of goodness which is innate and transcends everything, which is physical. It's, do you know what I mean?
I think this is where you get this debate of goodliness versus godliness,
Ahmed,
right?
Yes.
And that's what makes Imam Hussain stand out about when we talk about these comparisons. It's very superficial comparisons because we know, as those who are either part of the organization or generally as Shias, we know there is no comparison to him. Exclusively him, of course. The Ahlul Bayt in general, that's a different.
You mean outside of the fold?
Yeah. And the thing that separates him is the fact that he did all of this for the most purest and selfless reasons that can possibly exist, and that is for God. You can't get anything that is more selfless and more pure than when you give everything that you can for his sake. But that is a very easy, an easy thing for Shias who have been brought up in this madhab to be able to say, and maybe I don't claim to say that I've understood it, but to be able to somehow, get with. But for somebody who is perhaps an atheist, that is a million miles away, and they're going to need a few steps from us to make that a little bit more of a gentle process.
Yes. Well, as far as I'm concerned, I think our children, all of us have children, all our children are going to ask us in 40 years' time, how is your generation allowed a live genocide to be broadcast?
Yeah, for sure.
A live genocide is being broadcast every single day. Not an hour goes by without more updates on this live genocide. What on earth has happened to our world where not only is it live broadcast, but the flames are being fanned by the most powerful forces of our very earth, of our very structures.
Yeah.
Every single structure of society, corporate, capital, private sector, public sector, is fanning the flames of it.
All in that favour.
What has happened
100%.
to our world order
I agree with that.
has allowed it to get to the point where people are literally like lusting for blood?
Do you know what?
The most powerful.
I think
Extraordinary.
what both of you have mentioned about the goodliness and the godliness and the fact that there's a process we have to go through, and if that means making the tragedy of Imam Hussain somewhat contemporarily accessible and relevant, so be it.
So you asked about Gandhi. That's exactly right. And if it means it's a point of access, it doesn't need to, we're not saying equals.
It's not an end goal.
It's not. And let me give you an example. But I say that example of Gaza, right? It's not the first time it's happened. You guys heard about the Belgian massacre of Congo?
Yes.
Right? Heart of Darkness, Apocalypse Now.
yeah.
All this, the origin of that is King Leopold II massacring the Congolese to profit.
Yeah.
Do you know what that guy did, King Leopold II? He set up a company, a corporation. He basically set up something called Oxfam, right? Imagine Oxfam today. And he said to everyone, guys, all the international community, will you come and support Oxfam while I do this work in Congo? Except he called it Oxfam. Essentially is what he did. So he deceived people into thinking it's a charitable organization. It was a private corporation that he profited from, destroyed tribes in Congo to put money in his back pocket. We're talking about hundreds of years ago.
Yeah.
Humanity's been destroying itself, eating itself in a cannibalistic way for profit and greed
For millennia.
and self-promotion for as long as we can think. Something, as far as I'm concerned, I've arrived at this basic conclusion. My kids are going to ask me this question. Their kids are going to ask them that question. Their kids are going to ask them the same question, which is, how did your generation allow this nonsense, this filth to happen?
But do you know what? Like we
something has
like,
to change, and
I
that's
think,
I
agree with that. But I do
announced
think that like there's a lot of noise around us, right, in the world, and there's a lot of like nonsense as well. At the end of it, when we enter these nights of Muharram and we just reflect, we just remember Imam Hussain was a Gharib, and he died a Gharib, and that loneliness of the Imam, and you think, what did he think in that moment? And you think of fana and sacrifice and ittihad and all of these things that the Imam gave to Allah. Well, that was the greatest. You know, I mean, he gave his soul for his Lord, and that ultimately is the greatest goodness that becomes godliness. And I think that's such a beautiful way to think of it, because there's superficial goodness that you see around, and that's feeding a guy and donating blood and haircuts, that's free, and these are, like you said, introductions. They're keys to enter a door where you learn about godliness and you learn about giving more than yourself. Do you know what I mean? What Imam Hussain, salamullah alayhi, what he did was greater than just giving his life. He gave everything. He gave his reputation. He gave, the name of his family. Just even like we're recording this, guys, before Muharram has begun, and obviously before the episode comes out, and we're in the days just after the Shahada of Hazrat Muslim alayhi salam. And you think about even from Hazrat Muslim, right? So he sent his cousin to go on a scouting mission, and his cousin went. Even what Hazrat Muslim alayhi salam did himself was just like unthinkable. He said, I will go to a faraway land because I love my cousin Imam Hussain. I know he's the Imam of my time, and ultimately I know that he's the Hujjah of Allah on fil ard. And he went there, and he was alone there. He was gharib there. And he thought, there's a greater goodness here. And when he was obviously on the rooftop, and they gave him the drink of water, and the blood fell into the water, and he couldn't drink it. This is Allah's will. Ultimately, when we think of all of these stories in the context of Imam Hussain, and you have that inside you, that emotion and that raw love, that passion, when you speak about Imam Hussain to anyone around you, it will always come back to that. You can talk about all the charity stuff and all of these like acts of kindness. Ultimately, when you get into a conversation with anyone, you will always get back to that, because you know that it's more than just the guy, he gave up his life, and it was more than that. Even if you were to speak to someone, if you had a 1 hour conversation, me and Ali obviously work together. We have a few non-Muslims who we work with who ask us on a yearly basis, why are you guys taking this day off work? Both of you, your whole, days off, you're going to a majalis, you're whatever, you're going to the mosque, you're wearing black, right? So we go through that process, that conversation process. Now, mashallah, our colleagues know what the deal is, but it's like, it comes out. It comes out and you can't contain it. Do you see what I mean?
No, I know what you mean. And I really love the point you mentioned as well about Muslim ibn Aqil, because it reminds us, Imam Hussain called him thiqati, like you are my trusted one, right? Yeah. But what struck me right now when you mentioned the story is that he was an ambassador to Imam Hussain, right?
He did what we should aspire. We're on the same wavelength, yeah. we try to aspire to be there, bro.
And I think that's critical, because we can all become ambassadors of Abu Abdullah Hussain alayhi salam, and organizations like Hussein Hussain. This is one avenue, one road that we can take towards this path. And I think something that's very nice, that there's the previous discussion we've had here. I think we were talking about the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and one of the points that was mentioned is that when you interact with non-Muslims, when you interact with people who have no faith, possibly atheists, maybe Christians, Jews, whoever they are, they don't know who Rasulullah is. They haven't met him, they haven't read his seerah, they haven't picked up the Quran. We represent Islam and our beloved messenger, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
We're the ambassadors.
So in many ways, this is us, inshallah, representing Abu Abdullah, his values, his principles, his stances, why he went there, what happened, what took place. These are all little things I think that we can positively impact the world, which is something the world's missing out.
If you're an ambassador of someone or a representative of someone, you're a mirror. You have to mirror them exactly. You can be no differentiation between the original and the not even the replica, the second. And if there is a difference, then it's means that something is wrong. That means there must be a fault. We can't allow ourselves to be a faulty representation of that man. If we're going to name our children Ali, Hassan, Hussein, Zainab, Fatima, then we have a huge burden and responsibility on ourselves to put our best foot forward and do our level best to make the better of everything around us, make the best of it, number one. And number two, allow us to be a magnet for the true magnificence of those personalities. Otherwise, we've fallen short. And that's the burden. The gift comes with that responsibility. That's the quid pro quo.
Could I ask, like, with all this being said, this is all good work. May Allah commend you for everything that you do, and inshallah give tawfiq to the entire team around the world. Part of Hussein. Can I ask, has anything gone wrong during all of this past years, like that you would change, or very briefly? Because I'm sure, because you're dealing with non-Muslims.
Do you mean he means in interaction?
Like for example, does it feel at times this may become a sales pitch? When you're speaking to non-Muslims about
He means in interactions, not internally as a team.
Sorry.
That's a really good question.
Do you mind? Sorry, because me and Muni worked together in Who's Hussein, and my role was I had to work with the teams. So obviously, I had a lot of stories. Long story short, bro, there was obviously issues that the teams themselves had. A big one was hijab. So can I talk about Imam Hussain if my hijab
Okay.
for brothers or sisters, mainly sisters, in that
Okay.
conversation, you know, is there an issue there? Representing the Ahlul Bayt, talking about the Ahlul Bayt, no, that's one thing. Another thing was, just from what I remember, obviously you guys will have live and active stories. People will say there are so many martyrs in history, why does this matter? Only 72 died. What about the millions here, the hundreds of thousands there? You know, that's obviously a numerical, you know, thing and whatnot. But there are obviously rebuttals, which I said earlier. There's a lot of rebuttals that people give in interaction. Each of these rebuttals has answers. A lot of the things that these teams do, which are amazing, is they do training, internal training with new volunteers that come on board. They give them these FAQs people ask.
Okay.
Right? So obviously you have to do your reading, you have to understand Imam Hussain, you have to understand what it was historically and spiritually as well. And then obviously common FAQs that the public have as well, right?
Yeah. Look, I think in any organization, organizational stuff, you're always going to have things that you learn from. There's always going to be things you could improve. You've asked in terms of like the actual dissemination and the interactions.
Yeah. Because it's a unique way of propagating the
It
message.
absolutely is. I humbly wouldn't say anything has gone wrong, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah.
But I think things could be better. Because again, remember that target number at the moment, as we hear in 2025, 7 billion, right, people that we need to get through to. And all of these people, different races, different ethnicities, different cultures, different religions, no religion, different walks of life. You know, they've had different things they've grown up with. Difficult to speak to all of these people in a way that is going to definitely hit home. You may have a way, an elevator pitch that I'm thinking in my head that, you know, that would work on that person. You know, I've worked at a school, for example, where it's worked on people. I've sent out those emails every year before Ashura to say there's going to be loads of the school I was at had loads of Iraqis. So like, listen, 10% of the school is going to be off tomorrow. And after 5 years of seeing that email, they're like, look, who's this Hussein guy?
Yeah.
I'm in. I can chat to you for ages. But it is a tall challenge to try and find a way that you can really make sure that every one of our representatives, as Ahmed said, in those different ways, first of all, does the job of being an ambassador and does it in a way that you can actually deliver the message and hit it home, so that you've just made that message land. Again, back to what happens with their religious journey, that's in God's hand. We're here to just make sure that you learn about this man, and this is a step for you. This is a gift, you know, that you can take with you. So I think things can be better. And, you know, we need more resources and maybe more support, etc. Sure. But I don't think, alhamdulillah, till today, anything has gone wrong or devastatingly wrong. Maybe there's one or two things that have gone wrong that we're not aware of, but nothing that has been like, oh my God, this was an absolute disaster.
We're always a work in progress, right?
Yeah.
But I can say hand on heart, we've done our best, to the best of our knowledge, and God has given us so much grace. God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has been so merciful to us.
Yeah.
We see examples every single campaign season, every year, of God's hand of just like mercy and rahmah for us. I think the point Muntazir made about regionalizing and understanding, like for example, if you're Nike, if you say just do it, it's very hard to misunderstand just do it, because you reduce something to like a slogan. And so you say just do it in Angora and you say just do it in Albania, okay, fine, it's 3 words, you can't go wrong with it. But if you talk about a historical figure laced with religious symbolism in people's second language, right, from east to west, bro, I talk to someone in Glasgow differently to talk to someone in London. Forget talking to someone in the East Coast versus talking to someone in Dhaka, Bangladesh. They're completely, and so the ability to make that conversation common denominator without without losing deep, powerful, life-changing meaning is very hard. Yeah, and that's a journey we've had to mature on. And I'll be honest, there's good faith actors and bad faith actors who are sometimes misunderstand what we try to do. Good faith actors and bad faith actors. I'm saying both. Mostly good faith actors, but understandably people can misconstrue because people are protective of this man who means so much to them, which is very understandable, and it's very emotional, right? You don't talk about my Hussein that way. I understand that. And also, let's be honest, we're all human. We're all prone to error. So if someone does or says something in one place, I'm not excluding myself from this. then it's representative of an organization which is now counting itself as many thousands of volunteers in 60 cities in 26 countries across 5 continents.
Yeah. So
And if someone wants to join, who's
This
the
is-
same team,
yeah.
how do they go
A
on
great
board?
gift. Who's Hussein? Get involved. Go to the get involved section. Email. What email was saying?
World out.
Yeah,
is the
or
same.
just go to whoshussain.org, go to the get involved section. It will take you through it. We will get the email and we will reach out to
Complete the
you.
form.
And
Yeah.
Or
please,
find your local
I-
team on Facebook or Instagram,
Yeah,
or whatever.
absolutely.
If I can say a couple things, these guys know how much, but they probably don't know how much they mean to me, how much you mean to me through my 3 older
Habibi.
brothers. May Allah bless you all.
Likewise.
And how much the 3 of you inspire me, and how much you've all done for me individually and collectively as well. But what Hussein does is unique, irreplaceable. I'd say we would be behind as a Western Shia community had we not had Hussein and the team there, the brothers and sisters around the world who work like tirelessly. Allah knows how much they've put into it. And for anyone who's listening and for anyone who can relate or resonate with what you've heard today, please check it out. Visit hussain.org, read the resources firsthand, support whatever you can. Hussain.org/donate. The money that is spent goes like only towards good causes, and I've seen that as a donor. I've donated to Hussein myself for years. Initially at gunpoint, but because I'm joking. I'm
Still
joking.
at gunpoint. You just don't know, you just can't see the gun.
As in my brothers and my boys.
in-
Anyway, no, I'm joking. But no, as in, like, you know the money's going in the right places. And finally, of course, become a rep for Hussein, support them, join your local team. You probably have a local team where you live. Go and join them now. If you're not, what are you doing? Why you listen to After Maghrib? You're an hour in. You love Imam Hussain, but you're not part of your Hussein team.
This organisation
do-
doesn't
do-
belong to us.
can I shamelessly add one more thing to this?
Please.
whoshussain.org/share. If you go onto there, we've prepared a load of resources for people. They're pre-made tweets, LinkedIn posts, Instagram posts. We're even going to be uploading school assemblies. There's
Shop
loads
signs.
of shop signs. There's loads of
Our
things on there.
offices.
Please go
Yeah.
on to whoshussain.org/share and just let people know, your colleagues, your neighbors, your friends, whatever it is, let them know about Imam Hussain. Let them know the night before, why are you going to be maybe taking a day off or closing the shop or wearing black for the day. Let people know. This is a gift that God has given to you. Don't keep it to yourself, please.
Beautiful. I said. Any last words for anyone listening, especially entering now the nights of Muharram?
I mean, look, Imam Hussain is not just confined to this season and this, like, he's a year-round phenomenon.
Yeah.
But it's a good opportunity for us to all energize ourselves, whether it's through Hussein or something else, for us all to become as Hussaini as we can. Let us all be the best ambassadors for this religion, for this man, and help us on that journey and those around us towards God, inshallah, in whatever form that takes. And we as an organization, we ask for people's support. That's what, if in these nights of Muharram, you reaffirm. People tell us all the time in Muharram, I reaffirm my allegiance to Imam Hussain.
Yeah.
If you find it within yourself that there's a calling for you in Hussain, then the door is open for you, because this organization is not owned by us. But whatever form that is, whether that's Hussain or somewhere else, let us all be the best Hussainis we can for the rest of our lives.
Inshallah.
That's the best we can do.
Inshallah.
Wali.
Inshallah.
No, nothing to add. Just be part of the journey. I think I'm sounding like a broken record. He is truly a gift that none of us deserve or did anything to qualify for. So please find a way to just spread him with at least one person that doesn't know about him, and share that gift with them. And God is the one that will give you a reward for that, inshallah.
A candle is not dimmed by lighting another candle.
Ahsant.
Candle is not dimmed by light. I need to think about that. Okay. I see.
Candles not
It's
by
not-
light.
You don't
Yeah,
lose
not
anything
like
by
lighting
inspiring
another
someone
candle.
else.
Yeah.
Ahsant.
Ahsant.
Sharing is
Beautiful
free.
That's a
advice.
mad one. You know, Sayyid is different. Usually, every Muharram, this is our, fourth Muharram on the pod.
This will be our 4th Muharram.
MashaAllah. Every year, we usually start with Musiba, and we end with Musiba, and it's just cyclical, but it's nice, and I'm grateful to you guys, obviously, for coming on, but it's nice to start the season, I think, with something actually practical for listeners at home.
At least it gives us ammo over the next few days throughout the month of Muharram and Safar, how to speak with, I think, non-Muslims. So this has been very beneficial,
Ahsant.
very eye-opening. The work you do is unique. I say, may Allah bless you. And always you have the love of Allah, Abdullah, not just in yourself,
Inshallah.
your offspring and your future
La
generations
ilaha
down the
illallah.
line. And I want to ask one question. I know we're almost done,
Saints,
but this is important.
Bro, this is his
This is
thing,
important because I've been co-hosting.
Don't say who it's to say.
No, this is the fourth Muharram.
go on.
Say who
This
is
is-
this? By the way, who is this?
This is the fourth Muharram that I've had the honor of co-hosting with your brother Ahmed. I know who Hussein is, inshallah. But who is Ahmed? Tell me one thing about Ahmed that something no one else knows.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I need to know before the episode ends.
This is the part where I get out.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Ahmed's a very loyal guy.
Oh no, I know
Ahmed's
what's
a
coming.
very in his heart, he's very loyal. He's a Liverpool fan, for example. He's very loyal to Liverpool. And when he was a Chelsea fan, he was very loyal to Chelsea. if you cut him now, his blood will bleed red.
Yeah, Hussein.
Not always the case, maybe. Very loyal guy. Terms and conditions apply.
Allah said, may Allah
Ahsan,
bless you
thank
both
you.
and
No,
yourself,
brothers,
brother.
inshallah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I don't know what to say, bro. And we're not going to talk about Premier League football on the night of,
Not today.
of Muharram, but
Not today.
yeah. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to Ali and Muntazir for joining us. Make sure you check their work out. Follow Hussain on their campaign for this Muharram, which I believe is going to be absolutely incredible, and from what we've seen so far. And make sure you subscribe to After Maghrib. As I have said, if it's your first time here, welcome. If you're here for a recurring, or you've been here before, welcome back. And inshallah, stay tuned, because this will be inshallah a season where we all go on a journey and where we continue to uplift as a community. Lovely to speak to you all, and listen, please remember us in your dua in these coming nights. Take care, inshallah. We'll see you next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Take care.